I'm so excited. I even gave it an intro of Chris Do. So, is everybody ready for this much anticipated webinar that we're having? I know I am. Just a second. Okay. So, we're live, and I'm very excited, and I'm much excited to see that already there are almost 1,000 people. Oh, over 1,000 people already watching. So hi, Juan from Malta. Hi, Sammy. And it's going to be a great webinar. And welcome everyone to the much anticipated webinar featuring Chris Do, none other than Chris Do of the future. And I'm Ben. I'm the head of content here at Elementor. Elementor, in case you don't know, is the website building platform that empowers web creators and powers millions of WordPress websites. We started this series last month, and the feedback we got was really amazing. Also, the engagement we received. And that's why we decided to continue with it and interviewing a key figure each month, each one around a topic related to the success of web creators today. And today's webinar is a special one. It will deal with a topic that is very relevant to a lot of you, building yourself as a creative. We will focus on building your skills, trust, expertise, and authority, so people will be more likely to hire you and you'll be proud of your work. So be sure to never miss one of these monthly webinars. Click on the subscribe button to be sure to be notified when another one is coming up. And now I want to introduce you to today's very special guest. Chris Do is an Emmy Award-winning director, designer, strategist, and educator. Chris is the founder of The Future, one of the leading online education platforms, teaching the business of design with around 800,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's amazing. I personally have been following his content for 4 years, and I've pretty much been telling everybody about his work. So without further ado, welcome Chris to this webinar.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here. I just want to make sure you guys can see me and you can hear me okay. Am I coming in loud and clear?
Let's ask the stream if you can hear us okay. Just give us a shout out here. I can see some people from a Guy from Israel and Abdul from Indonesia. Yeah, so I think we're good to go.
Awesome.
So Chris, can you elaborate a bit more about yourself beyond my introduction?
Well, you did a very good job. I studied graphic design at a traditional private art school, and I've done motion graphics for most of my professional career since 1995. I've run my own business. And in that time, we've built over $80 million making commercials and music videos. And the last 6 or so years, I think I found my true calling in life. I describe it to people, this is the third act in a 3-act career in my life. And that the first act was learning and building. Second act was maintaining and expanding. And the last act is really about giving back to people. And that's really what I'm here for, is to give back to people. I feel like I've been very fortunate as a refugee coming to America from Vietnam, escaping communism. I was in the land of opportunity. I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at, and I want to help other people do the same. As you mentioned a little bit, our mission is to teach 1 billion people on planet Earth how to make a living doing what it is that they love. And for a lot of us, we don't really need help in the creative parts. We need help in the business parts. We need to become bilingual, and we need to speak the language of business and the language of creativity. And when we bring those two together, wonderful things can happen for all of us.
That's very inspiring. And what are we going to talk about today? I mean, when I first wanted to interview you, there were so many topics that I wanted to pick your brains, and our community as well suggested a lot of topics. So what do you have for us today?
Okay, well, this is a tough one. Usually I like to have conversations with people. So I prepared a deck and I put something together based on the topic at hand, which is how to build yourself as a creative person, especially with what's going on in 2020 right now. A lot of us are facing many challenges that we never thought we'd face in this lifetime. So I put something together, but I'm going to encourage you, Ben, and whoever else is moderating comments and questions for us to interrupt me, to stop. I don't need to do this deck. I've got 57 slides, but I could just have a conversation with you. So we're going to try something here. I'm using the switcher. So if I switch over to my deck, can you see my slide? Is it coming in loud and clear?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Um, so right now I'm going to talk about how to rebuild yourself, because there are some challenges that we're all facing, and it's easy to feel a little bit lost right now. These are turbulent times. I don't think I'm being um, overly exaggerating when I say this, in that these are really turbulent, unprecedented times right now that
For
we're
sure.
going through. That there's this global freezing of the economy. We're all doing the best that we can to work from home under self-quarantine. And so you could feel really lost right now. And when you feel lost, there's a lot of fear. You're anxious about your future and you don't know what to do with yourself. And the one thing that we have a lot of right now is quote unquote free time. Because we're not commuting back and forth from work, which for many of us is saving us hours off of each day. But some of us don't even have the opportunity to work anymore. Many people have been laid off, furloughed, let go. They're all fancy ways of saying you don't have work and you don't have an income source. So one thing that I think about a lot is to focus on the things that you have control, things that you have agency over, versus the things that you have no control over. Unless you're a scientist, a healthcare professional, or somebody who's working in the supply delivery chain, this is not something that you can do. Okay, so naturally we're sitting here thinking, how do I reinvent myself to go out and get work? And you notice that the O has been replaced by this stone, because the expression is, it's not possible to squeeze blood from a stone. So if your clients right now are struggling to make ends meet, if they don't have the ability to service their customers or to be able to manufacture their products, trying to sell to them right now is going to be a very difficult, if not an impossible task to do. And it can come across as being very insincere, and to be a little tone deaf, like you're not really paying attention. It's all about me, me, me. So what I want to do is kind of get back to this idea of work, but not work for clients, but work for yourself, to help you right now find your direction, your North Star, and have agency over the parts that you can control and take action today. So the definition that I like about what a pessimist versus an optimist is that the pessimist looks for the difficulty and the opportunity. And what we need to do as optimists is look for the opportunity in the difficult. And right now, we're definitely facing some really difficult times, right? And unless you're working in industries where you're servicing people in these categories, you might start thinking about how you can adapt what it is that you're doing to be able to participate in the few companies that are flourishing, or the few industries that are flourishing right now. And they are, if you have anything to do with remote collaboration, you're probably doing pretty well right now. We saw that the stock for Zoom, the video conferencing tool that we're using right now, has skyrocketed. Things that enable remote collaboration like Frame.io, Slack, Notion, Basecamp, whatever your online app of choice is, if you can think about how you can align what you do with them, that might help you, because these are the people who are hiring, who are growing, who are in need of creative services. And connected to that, adjacent to that is audio visual. You can see from my video today, people are now being forced or asked to, for the first time, to have a more professional sound and look to the way that they come across during video conferencing. We're not quite sure when this will change. So if you are able to tap into that market, if you are a consultant, advisor, equipment manufacturer, a logistics person, you can help a lot of people, professionals especially, have a more professional appearance on camera. Virtual production. How do we get work done from far away? There are people like my friend Matthew Workman, who's doing virtual cinematography with real-time visualization tools. People still need to make content. They still need to market. So if you can service people in the content marketing space, that might help you out a lot. Or in the delivery space, which I mentioned, manufacturing, medicine and healthcare, and e-commerce. I was talking to somebody online who said their business is growing right now by 200 or 300%. And I asked him, what business are you in that you're growing right now, where everybody else is like losing their job and worrying about paying rent? The industry that he's in is he builds websites. So as people are transitioning from a traditional brick and mortar business, which you can't do anymore, They're looking at how to adapt what they do, the service or products that they manufacture, to having an online portal. So if you're in the e-commerce space, there's a lot of opportunity for you. Start thinking about how you can service those people. And last but not least is education. Since the schools have been shut down, all the kids have been sent home across the globe. I think this is a big moment. This is an inflection point for universities down to grade school. How are they going to adapt to this? And there's no promise of a vaccine coming, and there's no telling that the next version of the COVID disease or virus is going to be here. There's no telling, no prediction. So we need to start thinking about how we can tap into any one of these industries, how we can service them, how we can be a part of it, or to be part of the industry itself. So these are things to think about. Now, if you don't come up with any ideas for that, that's okay, because I also want to talk to you today about personal development. So you have this free time. What are you going to do? What do you do with your time? So there's this quote that I love to talk about. He's one of my business influences, a business philosopher, Jim Rohn, who's an entrepreneur, an author, and a public speaker. He's no longer alive, but he's like, work harder on yourself than you do on your job, because income seldom exceeds personal development. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about this, okay? Now, what I want everybody to do is think about what it is that they really want to do for the next 5 to 10 years. And this is really critical, because there's this law that I have, the law of concentration versus the law of dilution, that if you take your energy and you have finite energy and time and resources, and you focus it on one thing, you could do some really good things. But if you spread it across a lot of different things, constantly being pulled in 100 different directions, you're going to fall into the trap of the law of dilution. The analogy I like to make is this: if you have a knife and you scrape out the very last bits of peanut butter, you can make one excellent sandwich. But if you have to spread that little bit of peanut butter across 1,000 pieces of bread, it's not going to taste very good. And this is the law of focus. So what you do is pick one focus and then do this thing where we go 5 on 1. I want you to read 5 books on one subject. So if you want to get better at sales, read 5 books on sales. If you want to do marketing, 5 books on marketing, or social media, whatever it is that you can think of that you want to be better at, pick 5 books on the same subject. And there's a reason why. There's this idea called syntopical reading. That's where you not only read to understand, but you read to compare and analyze so that you can have an informed opinion. And it turns out, as I've kind of gone on this journey myself and have coached other people, reading 5 books actually won't make you an expert, but it'll get you pretty close. And so few of us read books, and the average American only buys 1 book a year. So if you can do this, you can do yourself a lot of good. So going back to the deck here, there's this other idea about learning. And learning for a lot of people is like this all-you-can-eat buffet, and they get addicted to just consuming lots of information, right? And that's the beginning process of learning. So there's things that you can consume. And I mostly talk about books, but there's books, there's videos, courses, podcasts, audiobooks, and webinars just like this one. But what happens is when you consume this content, it starts to give you this feeling, and it's called the illusion of mastery, where by consuming content, like, we're smarter by osmosis. So here's where I want you guys to apply the 2X rule. The 2X rule looks something like this: spend twice as much time on reflection and implementation as you do in consumption. So if you read for 1 week, you need to spend at least the minimum 2 weeks reflecting on what you learn and implementing it into your life. This is the critical part. There's a lot of research on this, that cramming more information into your brain isn't going to improve anything, even your ability to recall the information that you've learned. So there's a simple 4-step process that I want you guys to adopt when it comes to learning, which is first, consume. We have to consume something. We have to have high quality content to consume. We have to be focused when we're consuming this content, not distracted, doing a lot of different things, not to do multitasking. And then afterwards, we're going to reflect. Think about the things that we read, the things that we watched or participated in, and then use this filter that's helped me out a lot, which is think about how you can apply this to your life right away. And the last part is to share. And I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper into this. Ben, am I going okay? Is the pace okay for you?
I actually have so many questions, but I didn't want to interrupt the pace.
Sorry. Should I stop? Should you ask now, or should I just keep?
I want to ask something. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Ready.
It relates to something that someone also asked before the interview.
Yes.
And I know it's a lot on people's minds. When you become a web creator, or you're kind of a one-man company or
Yeah.
one-woman company,
Mhm.
and the problem with focus is that the more success you get, the amount of tasks go up. So how can you kind of filter out the redundant everyday pile of tasks and focus on important things like 5 books and so on?
Mhm. So can you give me an example as a web creator, what additional tasks that you assign to yourself when you become more successful?
Um, well, I get communicating with clients
Okay.
and bookkeeping
Okay.
and working with other freelancers.
Mhm.
So
Delegation
that's yeah,
and project management.
exactly.
Okay. Now it's becoming clear. Okay, I see what you're saying. So in the beginning, and this is broad, so it doesn't even matter if you're a web person or not. As a person who is freelancing, doing work for other people, as you become more successful, you get more work. Then you have to develop systems to manage that work. And this is good news. This is high class problems, right? Low class problems, I have no work and nobody pays me. The high class problem is I got too much work. What am I going to do? So then you start to put on more hats, so to speak, and you have to be able to do these things because now you're growing your business. So we talked about you need to do client relationships, which is usually referred to as account management. You may need to onboard more clients and then build bids and read through proposals and all RFPs, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so here's what we have to do. This is Peter Drucker. He's like the purpose of you as a manager, as a leader of your company, is to do the one thing that's essential to the success of your company. We get caught up in doing a lot of unessential tasks. So I have a general rule. If you can pay somebody else less money than you can charge for a task, you should give it to somebody else, because there will be tasks that you can give to nobody else. Strategic planning, probably account management, working with the clients, and plotting out the future. So
Yeah.
if I get paid $100 to do something, excuse me, $100 an hour, and I know the fair market value of that same task, like say bookkeeping is say $30 an hour, I am costing my company $70 an hour. I'm losing $70 an hour by holding on to that work because my fair market rate is $100, and I can easily give somebody else that work. So this is where probably there are a lot of online tools, accounting software that can automate a lot of the process. You can probably hire a bookkeeper to come in every 2 weeks to do your books and reconcile your accounts, work with an accountant and an attorney to set up your books properly. But that's what I would start to do. This is how you start to begin to grow as a business.
That's perfect.
Okay. Any other
Go
questions?
on.
Go
No,
on.
go
Okay.
on. I have, but
Now, okay. Here's your goal. Here's your goal as the executive of a company, is to consolidate the largest amount of discretionary time that you can. What do I mean by that? If you say you take a typical 8-hour day, you go to the office, you answer emails, you do a meeting, and then you have lunch, and then you go back and you do another meeting, you make a few phone calls. There's not a lot of free time for you to think, and that's the most precious thing that you have, is that free time. Consolidate your discretionary time. So here's what you should do. You should consolidate all of your meetings in one time block, preferably on one day if you can do that. That's what I try to do, so that you have these large chunks of time where you're not distracted, you're not meeting, you're not doing anything but thinking, because this is where you're most valuable. Okay, so that's what you want to do. You want to consolidate your free time so that you can read these 5 books on one subject. All right, getting back into it. So it's not about consumption, but let's talk about how to consume better. And there's a book, it's called How to Read, and I'm applying some of the principles that I've learned from the book How to Read. Oddly, you read a book on how to read, right? So I have a very simple process. Sometimes I share with people on social media what my book looks like, and they're like, what is all the color coding and these weird things? What are you doing? And some people find it to be sacrilegious to be writing in a book. But I think the book is meant for you to learn. This is your tool, and use it. This is your canvas. It's not meant to be blank. So I've developed a little system I'm going to share with your audience today. It goes something like this. I highlight the keywords and phrases that I want to recall. highlight the key words and phrases I want to recall. And I usually only highlight the important words unless it's phrased so beautifully that I'll highlight the whole sentence, because we just need little mental breadcrumbs to be able to recall it. We don't need to know exactly how it was phrased. The next thing I do is with a pen, I underline ideas that are in need of comparison and analysis from other books. Remember I talked about reading 5 books? So as I read more and more books on different subjects, I'm finding the parallel and the overlap and the dissenting opinions from one author to the next. One author says you should say the price first. A different author says you should say the price last. So in those 2 books, I'm going to underline this and I'm going to take notes on it. And then I want to figure out where I weigh in on this. So the whole point of reading is to have an informed opinion. So there are instances when you want to talk about the price first, and there are instances when you want to talk about it last. Having both points of view lodged in my brain allows me to be more nuanced when somebody asks me, Chris, when should I price? First or last? The last thing, and this is a critical part, is I like to draw a box around ideas, words, phrases that can turn into a tool, a framework, a prompt, something I can use in my life. And this is how I activate my brain to learn and use these things. The other idea that I want to share with you, I got from chatting with author Austin Kleon, the writer of Show Your Work and Steal Like an Artist. Many of your audience will probably know who he is. And he talked about the genealogy of ideas, that people had brisked at his suggestion that there aren't original ideas and steal like an artist. So if you look at this and you say, and you're at the bottom of the tier here, you read a book or a tweet or a phrase, go see what book they've read. And then when you read that book, trace it all the way back to whatever logical conclusion you want to come to, and you get to the source of the content. It's very interesting to me because a lot of the work that we read that we attribute to as one person's idea is actually not their idea. And if possible, I like to get back to the source code, if you will, so that I can have my own interpretation of that. And this is why some people hate movies, because when they read the book, they have their own vision of what the author was writing. And then the movie changes that vision and is somebody else's interpretation of it. So the genealogy of ideas will help you pick your 5 books. You can start innocently with one book, read their book, and oftentimes in the index or suggestions by the author, you'll see books that they read. Order those books and read that, because now you're learning from who they learned it from, which is really cool. Another idea I learned from Austin is if your subject is about sales or inspiration or art, or it's never too late to start, go around and start to collect quotes. He loves to collect quotes, and the quotes sum up ideas in impactful and powerful and provocative, thought-provoking ways. And it's a really neat shorthand to remember big concepts. And everybody likes a good quote. So while you're in your pursuit of pursuing 5 books on one subject, start collecting quotes and just dump them in a file somewhere. Okay, this is part 2, and it's about reflection, because if all you do is consume, remember, it's the illusion of mastery. It's intellectual entertainment, but you're actually not doing anything with it. So I have a very simple prompt for you, is to ask, what was most useful to you? Every chapter you read, stop, reflect. What was the most useful thing that I learned in this chapter? And write it down. And then when you're finished with the book, try to then reflect and say, what were the 3 biggest ideas that were most useful to me? And write those down. And in this way, the knowledge starts to become a part of you. The third step in this is to implement. You got to take action. You got to try to use this in your life. And so author Michael Bungay-Stanier, who wrote the book, The Coaching Habit, he has this little idea. It's called the habit formula, or the new habit formula. Okay. And I just spoke to him recently, so this is very fresh in my mind. These are the 3 things you need to do. You need to identify the trigger, the location, the time, the place, the emotional state, the people that this is the habit that you want to change. So in this moment, you're going to identify what you used to do, and then you're going to define the new behavior you'd rather take. So the framework goes something like this. Okay, it's just 3 parts. When this happens, instead of, I will. So everybody that's tuned into this webinar, I would probably suggest that you screen capture this right now. So just ask yourself these 3 things. When this happens, instead of, I will. So I'm going to ask you this question. This is a prompt for your audience because I want to apply what it is I'm learning. I don't want you guys just to consume this content. I want you to participate in it. So I'm going to ask the audience right now, what's one thing that you can apply immediately to your life business from what we just talked about? And maybe they can drop that in the comments. Okay. We won't obviously have time to read it. And then apply it to that formula. So the formula would look like this. If you're really, really paying attention, this would be the formula. So when this happens, when I finish reading a book, instead of rushing to consume more content, I will stop to reflect, note what I've learned, and apply it to my life. So this is an old habit I want to change. I want to identify when it's happening, and then I want to do something different. So instead of doing this old thing, I'm going to choose a different thing to do. It's a very handy formula. It's asking you to reflect and think, and it's giving you a path forward, action to take. It's really clear. So in real life, it would probably look something like this, right? And people ask me this all the time, which is, how do you present yourself so confidently? How do I overcome my fear of trying something that I know I will fail? Well, it turns out you just have to try. So the more you try, the more you're exposed to, and the more that you're exposed to, the less you become afraid of, that the more things you'll try. So this is this beautiful virtuous cycle that we can all go through. So try more things to be exposed to more things. And what you often realize is the thing that you fear the most, the outcome you fear the most in terms of it coming to fruition, oftentimes never happens. And the reality of what happens is usually quite the opposite. So try more so you can experience more so that you can fear less. Here's the last part, and I'm almost done here because I'm on slide 34, 57. This part will go a lot faster. Is once you've applied something, I want you to go and share it. So it's very important for everybody that's watching this webinar to go and share something that they've learned to cement it in their memory. So you guys know about the learning pyramid, right? I'm realizing the contrast isn't so great here. But at the top of the learning pyramid is lecture. Like if you listen to a lecture like the one that you're listening to right now, you'll probably only retain 5% of it. Luckily, there's audio visual here so that you'll retain more. And if you read it, because it requires you to be active in that process, you might retain 10%. If we're going to keep going down this pyramid, so audio visual, like the one that we're talking about right now, you'll retain 20%. And if you apply it, or I'm sorry, demonstration, I'm just getting ahead of myself here. If you see a demonstration like in a science lab, that's why those videos are pretty interesting. Professors showing chemical reactions and explosions, right? And if we talk about it afterwards, which I hope we'll have some opportunity to do today, you might retain 50% of it. Look what happens when you actually apply it, when you implement it and take action. You'll retain 75%, but we're not done. We're not done because the last one is to teach others. So it turns out when you teach others, it requires you not only to have learned it, to reflect on what you've learned, but to be able to distill it down in ways that other people can understand. You're going to retain the maximum amount, which is 90%. Obviously, we strive for 100%, but it's not possible. So this expression comes to my mind. The best way to learn is to teach. And it sounds paradoxical, like, how do I learn something while teaching it at the same time? Because when you're forced to articulate what it is that you know, you learn something about yourself and what it is that you know. Writers have discovered this for a really long time. This is why they journal and why they write. So I love this expression, one teaches to learn. Because one person teaches another student, but in the act of teaching the student, the teacher learns what it is that they know. So you gain clarity through articulation. Another way of saying that is until you manifest what it is that you learn into something tangible. And here's a long list of things that are somewhat tangible: a tweet, a short or long form post. You can write a white paper, an ebook, or a book. And each one of these escalates, right? You can do a quick lecture. You can do a demonstration, a workshop, a podcast, a webinar. You can create carousels from the things that you've learned. You can make a much bigger carousel and share it on SlideShare. You can turn those slides and audio and visual into a video, and you can author a course. And if you want more ideas on how to do this and overcome your fear of creating and sharing what it is that you know, I highly recommend you read this book, Show Your Work. I'm going to take a breath right now. I'm down to 10 slides. Then let's talk again.
Oh my God, I have so many questions. That's very interesting. First, a question that popped into my mind of a recent video I saw. I think it was Gary Vee who mentioned it. There's a certain, when you're creating content, there's a certain balance between just putting it out there. I have an idea, I just put it out there, and doing the proper research, like you said, like reading the book, marking it, reading 5 books on the topic. And I'm not sure what I think about that exactly, because on the one hand there is value in doing continuous content and putting yourself out there. On the other hand, there's something about putting something you feel is the best you could do. For me personally, that's how I feel.
Yeah, so there's a balance there, right? And if you look at it like this, so I have a cup here. Here's my cup, right? And in the beginning of your life and your journey as a creative professional, this cup is mostly going to be empty. And I'll tell you, this is going to be a metaphor for what you know. Sadly, there are a lot of really young people who barely know anything out there making content because they want to make noise, they want to be famous, they want to be adored, they want to be liked. And I think they're doing it for all the wrong reasons. That's why they're doing that. So they're propagating really bad information based on zero research, zero learning, zero experience. And anybody that knows anything can see right through it. They're going to lose credibility. So as you learn more, the glass is going to start to fill up. And once it hits here, you're not going to be able to pour more. You can't fill a glass that's already full. So you need to empty that. And I think there's a balance there. And to each person, they're going to decide, I'm not going to share until I'm up here. But that might be a mistake too. And the mistake also is like, I'm down here, I'm going to share everything that I know, which is nothing. You're just making stuff up. So I think the balance is somewhere in the middle, and where you've learned a couple things. And I feel like this is necessary for me, that the way that I cement what it is that I've learned is I must share it. Like I read books and I love reading books. Like I don't want to do anything but read books. But like I said, it creates this feeling inside, like you're getting smarter, that you're mastering something. But until I share it, until I teach it, until I apply it in my life, it's going to evaporate. So everybody needs to kind of find their own balance there.
That's great. People are asking for you to share the slides. Are eager, to get to consume
Okay.
the content.
Yeah. So I'll make a deal with Ben. I'll give Ben the deck and he will decide what to do with it. Now, typically I get asked this all the time, is to share my deck. There's a couple of reasons why I almost always say no, because I still want to be able to share my own work. The minute I give you the entire deck, it becomes very hard that I basically compete with versions of myself. But Ben, I know this is important to you and your crowd, so you and I will figure this out and see what we want to share, okay?
Cool. Now, before we go into the questions from the audience, I do have a few questions, a few more questions. So, first of all, we've been hearing about the rise to fame of books that you've also mentioned, and we have figures like Tim Ferriss, who's really saying the importance of books. And I think I agree, because I think it really is important in today's realm, where you have all the information at hand, and to be able to, people need this person, this moderator, to get the content from the great content from books, from the great writers like
Right.
Peter Drucker, and sort of filter it in a video form. So how do you see it? I wonder.
Okay. I think you're asking a lot of different questions in there, right? So if I don't get this right, just please ask me again. You guys can see this, right? It's on this side. Sorry. I'm going to turn the camera. You guys can see this stack of books there in my light source here. You see there are books there. And then if I were able to pan down my video camera here, you'd see a stack of books here and another stack of books behind there. So we can get addicted to the idea of acquiring knowledge, but books require you to work, and it requires you to participate in the learning process. And for a lot of people, that's too much for a lot of different reasons. One is like maybe Amazon doesn't ship where you're at, or for whatever reason, the price of the book is more than you can afford and you don't have access to a library and the library is terrible. For those people who like to learn through seeing and through listening, there's video. There are webinars just like this, where you can become more engaged with the content. And so there's opportunity there for people like myself who read books like this and then share what it is that I've learned. And then hopefully if I'm citing sources and being respectful of the original content and making sure that people know where it comes from, then I think I help people. And I also help the author sell more books and spread the message, because whoever can spread the message, the message that's shared the most wins, right? So that's what I want to be able to do. So I do want to caution too, because I see this happening a lot. People are very insecure. So when they see an idea, they share it and they don't cite where they got it from as if it were their idea. And that's a disservice to you because it undermines your credibility, but it doesn't help the author who wrote the piece of content. So there's some of that going on. I personally love books, and just even looking at my books makes me happy. And I just can't wait to tear into them. But I have to follow the advice that I'm giving to whoever's watching, to your audience, which is enough's enough. Stop reading the next book. Implement it into your life. Share and teach others. Share as you're learning it. And this is really important because it'll make your ability to recall the information much better.
Yeah, and what you said about writing on the book, that actually forces you to do that. So I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you talked about self-development, and I think a main message in a lot of self-development books is like have a goal and then go get it. And when you're reading books and you're just finding inspiration and going from one author to the next author they mention, you're kind of in a different mode, in a journey mode. So is that also a balance, or is there like, how do you reconcile, okay, I want to learn typography, I'll just focus on that, I'll just learn the skill, in comparison to let's read I don't know, the philosophers and
Yeah.
Stoics,
Right.
you know.
So typography compared to an action thriller drama, whatever it is, can seem pretty dry. It really can. Like, would I rather read a comic book or a reference manual? Well, yeah, I'd rather read a comic book because it's entertaining, it's easy, and there's visuals. But what will I learn more from? So I think we have to train ourselves to develop the habit of doing what's difficult in order to get what it is that we want. The difficulty is what separates. In Seth Godin's book, The Dip, he talks about this, which is difficult things have a way of weeding out the uninterested, the unfocused, right? So to become a great web designer, web developer, or graphic designer, it requires a lot of practice, persistence, and patience to get where you want to go. And you want it to be difficult because otherwise it would be really crowded at the top. And you have to, I think, buckle up and have the self-discipline to say, you know what? I get to read this comic book after I finish half of this book on typography or whatever it is. And they're difficult to read for sure. They're not easy to read. And then you build in a little reward system. So you assign yourself something that's easy to do. And you could say, like, for every chapter I finish reading in this book, I'm going to have a scoop of ice cream, whatever it is that you want in your life. And just keep doing that. And at a certain point, the painful part you forget about, and you're like, I'm kind of enjoying this. And then by the end of it, you're like, dang, I know so much more and I can help so many more people. I've been getting this part of design all wrong. And now moving forward, I'll never make that mistake again.
Yeah, I think the good thing is, it's a bad thing also, but the good thing is that we're humans are easily addicted. So we're addicted even to things that we initially didn't like and suffered through. So I think that's definitely something to consider, that it gets easier.
Yeah, I think we are addicted to progress. We're addicted to learning. We're addicted to growing. And you have to get through the difficult part before that part presents itself. It's hidden under like a very tough exterior.
How long did it take before you, I mean, when you, how long should it take when you transfer from just focusing on web design and skill, these skills, to like, okay, pricing, business, uh, other more less skill oriented
Yeah, I
knowledge?
think I know what you're saying. And I'll share a little story with you guys. I started my company in 1995. Okay. And when I got out of school, I had a little bit of a lot of things. I knew a lot about graphic design and typography. That was always going to be my foundation, like what I would define my character, my company around. But I got into animation and editing and video production. And I started to build websites. I didn't even know what I was doing. I remember one time I hired a freelance animator who came in and he looked at me like I didn't know what I was doing. He's like, Chris, let me show you how to ease the animation curve. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know that you could do that. And he's probably sitting there thinking, and you hired me? Like, how does this work? So I knew right then and there, it was very clear to me, I need to focus. I need to put my energy and effort into like one area before I start to expand. And this is the cool part. So in case anybody gets really scared, it's going to look like this. It means that you're going to get rid of a lot of things that aren't part of your goal. But what's really cool is as you get to this focal point, you're going to start to realize there's another way to open it up and you rediscover even more things. So me choosing to become a better motion designer made me dive into animation. As I got into animation, I started learning about rigging and timing and pacing and editing, and then to study storyboard design and how to tell a story across frames. So it wasn't just a technical part. And so Blair Enns talks about this. He's like, you're in a room and there are 100 doors that you just need to pick one door to go through. What most people imagine in their mind, if they open that door and they go into that room, it's a dead end. But he says, once you go through that door, there are an infinite number of doors behind that door. And it's a lifelong pursuit of learning. So for some people who get started out in web design, you're going to get really good at web design. You're going to learn a little bit of the back end, the front end, and all this other stuff that I don't know anything about. And you get really good and you're going to become kind of like one of 100 people in the world that they would consider the best at something. What my friend Joel Pilger says, you go from being a web designer to the web designer. And once you achieve that kind of level of success and mastery, it's time to go through these other doors and you can explore other things. But see, we're easily bored and we have shiny object syndrome. So when something else new is kind of cool out here, we kind of rush that and we forgot. We never finished this journey. So we have a lot of unfinished things, unresolved things, and we don't want to do that.
And they get into the habit of turning around, coming like a boomerang, coming back to haunt you someday or another.
You wake up 10 years later and you wonder, like, this is not the life I had imagined for myself. This is not the success I've had because you've not done the hard work.
Yeah. I think we can go to some questions from the audience. So what do I pick? I always go, even when I read, I sometimes go from the end to the top, you know?
The newest to the oldest?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you reward the newest people.
So what books are must read for a graphic designer?
Ooh, okay. For a graphic designer, I'm going to recommend two books. Philip Meggs and Dave Carter. The book is Typographic Form and Communication or something like that. It's an excellent book. Very hard to get through because it's very textbooky like, but it's a wonderful resource and a treasure trove of information that's going to help you. The other book I'm going to recommend is a book called A Smile in the Mind. It's going to help you to add wit and conceptual thinking into your design. So those are the two, I think, must-read books.
So Meda, this is your question. Cynthia Ferry asks, how do you handle client demanding expert accessibility for their... Oh no, that's too technical. I won't read that. People just, oh my God.
Questions really short so we can get through them.
Yeah.
Help us out.
Oh, this is a good one. Can you recommend 5 books?
Yes, and I could do much better than that because if you just search Chris Do book list, you're going to see my top 10 recommended books to read. But I'll try to recall some of them right now. I would definitely recommend that you read Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh.
I love that.
Wonderful book. It's a very easy book to read. I would definitely recommend you read Show Your Work, 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness by Jim Rohn, The Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns. Gosh, I'm blanking on my book list right now. The Brand Gap from Marty Neumeier, or if you want to read his newer book, The Brand Flip.
Well, I only read one of them, so I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Uh, what do you, okay, this is Tarek asks, what do you do if you think that everything you know is just so little that it's not worth to share what you've learned so far?
Okay, that's a great question. And I think that question we already answered, which is don't feel a rush or a need to share if you're not ready. And if you don't know something, just become really curious and start to go down this journey of investigating the things that you want to know more about. I think it's really wonderful. There are a ton of resources out there. Like we live in this wonderful age where everything that the world knows ever is documented. Most of it's online. A lot of it's free or very low cost. So it's not a shortage of information out there. It's a shortage of the way that you learn the information and how you apply it. That's the critical part. There's a bunch of like really super smart intellectuals somewhere sitting in a room, in a white room, I imagine, in a castle with 1,000 books that they've read, but nobody knows who they are and they've not done anything of any note because all they're doing is consuming.
Yeah, plus I think that if you feel what you know is not worthy, maybe that's intuition that you should actually think about and go out and do what you say. Like,
Absolutely. Good answer.
here's a question that I want to know what your thoughts on. Kyle Brownsbridge, I would like to hear Chris's thoughts on do-it-yourself web builders, like the trend that anyone can build a website. What space is left for designers, and how do you motivate your web design fee?
Okay, I have to be very careful here because I'm probably going to say things that I don't know what I'm talking about and make a couple of people angry. Like any emerging technology or profession or service, eventually people are going to build tools to make the process very easy. So the people who are early adopters who had a competitive advantage because nobody else was in their space, they built very custom bespoke things, and it took a lot of time and energy and craft to make these things. As the tools become more and more powerful, it starts to eat at the market. The prices go down. It seems like it's a race to the bottom, but it's not really, because where do you want to spend your time and your energy? In rebuilding the bricks and the cement that is used to construct something? Or do you want to be paid for your ideas, your problem solving, your creativity, your energy, your design, and your copywriting ability? So at some point, the tools will be so powerful that anybody can build anything. So it's less about what you can build, but why you want to build something and what do you want to say with that thing. That will still, for the foreseeable future, require a human being with creativity and ideas and experience in their mind. So you have to learn that a painful lesson I've learned a long time ago, which is you are not the thing that you make. The thing that you make is an artifact of your thinking process and your creativity. So many of you guys will go out and you'll sell like, oh, I make logos, so I'm a logo designer. I make websites, so I'm a web designer. But really what you're trying to do is you're trying to solve a communication problem. You're trying to solve a business problem. Those are the things that you're trying to do. And if you shift your energy and you start thinking of yourself a little bit differently, that you are more than what you make, those are just artifacts. When those artifacts go, you won't feel so sad because you're not attached to those things. Clients call me, or at least they used to call me when I was still doing service work, not because I know how to do something, but it's because I know how to listen, I know how to ask the right questions, and I know how to make them feel a certain way. Then they don't even care if I have the skills or the expertise or the equipment or the manpower, the human power to make it. They don't care. They feel like you understand me and I know you'll get it done, so I trust you.
Yeah, and I think you can see that in the music industry, like so many powerful tools, and this just empowers special, unique people with talent, like Billie Eilish, who's like,
Right?
so that's going to happen. We're going to see a lot of young talent using these tools. Um, okay, I have, wow, so many good questions. Vikas Shankar asks, I wonder where these names are from the world. Maybe add the country. What's the best way to pitch a brick and mortar mom and pop shop to hire me to build a better website? I think we're going to more actionable. So
Yes, yes. Okay, so brick and mortar shop. if what I want you to do is before I answer this question, I want you to try to do something. I want you to try to feel like, or you try to experience what they're feeling like in this moment right now. What are they concerned about? And I think you need to
Um,
be super sensitive to this. You really do, right? So a
they
brick and
worry.
mortar shop has suddenly lost all their customers. They have a building or a space that they're paying rent on that they're not able to, like, there's no source of income. What do they need to do? So I think you have to like put on this cap and say, like, just like me, they're going through these problems. Just like me, they're looking for customers. Just like me, they're looking for a way out. Just like me. And when you start to really feel this comes from UX principles, right? To try to identify and look through the world through the eyes of the person that you're designing for. So what I would try to do is to have a conversation with them to say, like, how has your business been impacted by what's going on? What opportunities do you see that's out there? And if you could do anything, what would you do today to change your future? And I would just start to ask them questions and just really listen. And
Exactly. Like, how did you get business in the past?
yes,
Yeah, that's
sometimes the
perfect.
past can inform the future. And so you can ask a bunch of questions and just start listening. And Michael talks about it in his book, The Coaching Habit. And when they say something, just ask them, and what else? Tell me more. And at a certain point, you're going to uncover a real problem. And once you've gathered enough information, you might want to then suggest a solution, but not necessary. If everything that they tell you points towards building an e-com site or some innovative marketing idea or something that they need to share on social media, then and only then say, look, from what you told me, it sounds like this is what you need. This is something that you're interested in doing. And if you've had this conversation with them, you're both traveling to this destination together versus you starting at the end and saying, hey, I'm over here. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think that also requires a kind of mind shift in terms of if you're going to buy something, you're going to buy a poster, you can spend the time to talk to the shop owner and maybe some business will come of that. If you're not in the, okay, am I going to do Google ads or if you're not in that mode, then that's going to help you be more attentive and ask those questions.
Hey, Ben, I have 4 slides here that I could share with your audience if they're looking for more actionable steps in something that you can do right now. Because what we've been talking about is short to long-term things that you can do. But if you're in a situation right now and you need to start getting things going and looking for leads and prospects, I have a small list here. Should we do it? Okay, here we go. So I'll switch it over. And so this is what I think you can do with no money, and you're not going to annoy anybody to jumpstart your business like right now. Okay. If it's on life support and you just need to have things going, okay, we're going to get into it. So I'm going to just read this off. So one of the things that you can do, and I find this to be very effective, is to engage with other groups that are much more active and bigger that you have an interest in, and you can become their unofficial ambassador. And what do I mean by that? It's like if you join a group of web designers, somebody else created this group and there's tens of thousands of people in it, you can help to welcome new people into the group. You can say, hey, every time somebody's like, I'm new here, I'm lost, say, oh, you know what? Here's the archives, here's the resources, or here's a link to the books that that person recommends. You can answer questions. And it's okay if you get them wrong because it's not official anyways. You can then tell other people about this group. And so you're going to start to stand out in the minds of the people who are part of that group, your peers, as well as the people who run the group. We have hired many people who initially just started out by writing summaries to our YouTube videos. That's how the relationship began. Some of you may be familiar with Melinda Livesey, who's on our channel. She just engaged and participated in one of the Facebook groups I was managing, and it caught my eye. Lo and behold, we're like almost 20 episodes in coaching her. There's like a professional friendship that's developed now, and we're helping each other out. That's what I mean. So offer to help and be of service, be of value to other people within that community. So here's the thing number 2 that you can do is to repost and curate content. So this will answer the question. The person is like, I don't feel like I know enough yet to share. Well, it's okay, because you can be a person who helps to bring things through your lens, through your eye and your perspective to the community that you hope to build. So you can write reviews and recommendations of books that you've read or artists that you love and admire. You can write analysis and review. Of course, it's all going to be positive because you're fans of these people. You could take their content and you can cut it down and narrate over it, or say, like, here's like 5 things that I love about what Tim Ferriss says about shortening your work week. And then what happens is, if you do a really good job at this, Tim Ferriss will start to take note. And Tim Ferriss might see a surge in his following or engagement or book sales, and he's going to track you back down. And then he might reach out to you and say, hey, I love what you've done. Do you need me as a guest for what it is that you're doing? I've built professional relationships with people now that I consider friends, mostly by doing this myself. So mention them. And the whole idea here is to be generous. Link back to the book. Talk about why you love this. Link it to their Amazon so that they can just buy it because you're a fan. Here's tip number 3. Get on other people's platforms. It's hard to build one from scratch, from nothing. And today I'm talking to you, Ben, to your audience, to 1,000 or more people. This is going to help
1,700.
Wow, this is awesome. My goodness, you have a very strong community. So podcasts, you can be a guest on their podcast. You can write a guest blog or a post. People are doing this for my Instagram account. It helps them. It helps me. A friend of mine, Raul, which is one of my latest posts, he picked up 1,000 new followers by sharing one piece of content with my audience. That would take him a pretty long time to do on his own. There's a young woman who's a designer. She wrote something for me. She gained over 4,000 followers, which I think 5 times her following, because she only had 1,000 followers at that time. You can provide a testimonial. So if you really love something like this webinar, you can, without being solicited, give Ben a review on this so that he can share with other people, because there's nothing more powerful than unsolicited testimonial. You could do all those kinds of things. You can be a guest speaker. You can create YouTube and be a guest on their YouTube channels. You can do an email swap. This works best if somebody has a similar following as you, but it's slightly different audience. You can just ask this person that you like to mention you. It's kind of like a way of doing a shout out, and you would do that for them. And when I say email swap, I don't mean to give your email database to other people. That's may be unethical or even illegal. Okay. Here's the last tip. Tip number 4 is, okay, you're at that place now where you can actually generate original content. And there's an idea here from David Baker about drop and give me 20. So in the military, they test your physical preparedness by saying at any time you should be able to do 20 push-ups. So his whole prompt is, if somebody were you're in your industry, what are 20 valuable things that you could tell them that they would consider to be new and valuable? You can also do a better job of telling your story. And from his book, .com Secrets, Russell Brunson talks about this. Everybody, there's 4 characteristics to becoming an attractive character. 1, you have to have a compelling backstory that relates to what it is that you're doing. You have to have character flaws. It turns out we find people who have flaws and have struggled, who are still trying to figure things out, to be much more attractive than people who have had a perfect life. And we actually hate those people. You have to have parables, short stories, anecdotes about the experiences you've had and wisdom that you can share with other people. And lastly, you have to risk being polarizing, because if you have an opinion, and the stronger opinion you have, there's a good chance you'll gain a lot of people who love you and a couple of people who just hate you. And it's okay to be polarizing. Okay, that's it for that.
That's perfect. And actually, I can share that. That's exactly what we did when we started the Elementor, like communicating. And I think you can pull together everything, a lot of what you said in this talk, because if you have a topic of focus that you're interested in and you're learning about it, then naturally you're going to share it with others, build a community. And then you're going to naturally going to share your knowledge. So it's like 3 things. You're like learning, you're communicating, and you're teaching. And that's like, that's something that everyone who wants to succeed, they have to do.
Yep.
So that's great. A few more questions if we have time, because people are eager to learn. So Jerome asked, Chris, in running a company, how much of your total time do you spend on the website?
In terms of like building the website or updating it, or what is he meaning?
I guess marketing through the website, building
Oh,
it, and
okay. Well, the website for many people is the destination for all your different energy and effort. So it's important that you get your website right. Because as much as I interact with my friends and fans on social media, that's just the beginning of the communication, our relationship. It needs to end up somewhere, and the website is the best place that I know of to contain everything that you want to tell about your story, about your products and services. So we have a
okay.
team that's dedicated to working on the site. Admittedly, I don't spend that much time working on it personally, but when I have an idea, I share it with the team, and hopefully they're able to implement those ideas.
Yeah, when you grow your audience, you have to have them uh, be able to follow you on the website, on YouTube, on Instagram. So yeah, that's very important. This is a great question. How do you motivate a client during this during this time to invest, convince the restaurant owner to update their site for online ordering or create appealing social media content? Well, you already kind of answered that by being in asking them questions and being sensitive. Do you have any other tips or?
I do, and the way that that question is phrased may be a reflection of the person's intention. Is if you have this motive to try to get your clients to give you money, they're going to see that. They're going to see that you're not really here for me. You want something from me. And this is true in professional relationships and in personal relationships. If you think about it, you only call up that one friend when you need to borrow their truck, or you only talk to that person because you want to sleep with them. And they become very aware of this. Like you're not even interested in who I am and my story. And take me out to dinner at least. Let's have a conversation. Let's get to know each other. And I find that this is unintuitive and paradoxical in the way it sounds. The more you chase the client to get work, the less work you get. The less uh, desperate you are, if you don't want something from somebody, people want to give it to you. Blair Enns refers to this as the retreat and follow technique, which is you should practice this, which is to take a small step backwards and see if the client's interested, and they'll engage with you. If they're not, they'll go away. And one little thing that I've done, and it seems to work quite often, is when a smallish client calls me and I'm concerned that they can't afford me, I will say right up front, I don't want to waste your time. There's a good chance that what we need to charge you to do this work is going to be more than what you probably want to pay. So do you have at minimum $30,000 to spend on this? So that's sending a bunch of signals to them that I'm busy, I'm successful, that I know what I'm doing when it comes to business, that I know how to cost a project, like just based on a conversation. And then they have to say to themselves, you know what? I'm committed. I actually am very serious about this. I have $75,000 to do this if we can make this work. So just that one act of taking a small step back, and you can phrase it any which way that makes you feel comfortable, it forces the other person, do I want to engage or do I not want to engage?
Yes, I think it's the law of the universe. If you're only pushing, the other side will eventually draw back. It
That's right.
works with mating and dating, and it works in business. So,
That's right. Like
Chris,
if you
yeah,
yell, people will recede, right? But if you whisper, people will lean in. There's a difference there.
Chris, we're out of time, but I want one. Overall, are you saying that this is Jonathan Kahn? Overall, are you saying that to succeed in the creative industry, it is super important to create a personal brand?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. There are many successful companies and organizations that have no personal brand, but having a personal brand can help you because it helps to differentiate you from everybody else. You can win work purely based on clients. Oh, I'm sorry. You can win work purely based on your portfolio. You can also win work purely based on your relationships. And you can win work because people know you and they like and trust who you are. If you put all three of those things together, it's a pretty awesome, amazing, deadly combination if you think about it. So here's what I like to do. When I compete, I want to win. I don't just want to win a little bit. I want to destroy whoever I'm competing against, right? And I would not want to leave any tool that's available to me that's ethical and fair and legal. I would use everything within my power and resource to win. So if you have a great portfolio, which I assume many of you guys do, many of you still need to work on the relationship part of it. So the last part that you can actually control today is to work on your personal brand, which is to let people know who you are. And Simon Sinek says this so well, like people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. That we trust people who believe what we believe. And if you don't ever put it out there, what you believe in, well, I will pick somebody else.
Yes. Plus, when you are remembered as a person, then in the memory, when that person needs someone to build their website or logo or anything, they'll remember you more vividly if they have your face and your yeah, like your value, even if it's from something not exactly related.
Right.
Chris, it's been I think my personal goal is to was to interview you for a long time. So it's been a real pleasure, and I'm going to watch this in slow mo, not double speed, just to get all the references and screencast is like screenshot all the slides. So thanks a lot. We still need to deliberate offline regarding the slide deck. Uh, I'll try some of your selling techniques. So thanks a lot, and I think that you're able to articulate a lot of the concepts that originate in amazing books in a way that's very unique. And I look forward to seeing to keep following the videos that you share. And yeah, and we should do this again sometime.
Great. Thanks for having me. And thank you everybody who showed up. I just want to quickly show my social media handle here. So if you guys want to follow me for more information and content, there it is. And that's it. Thanks very much, Ben, for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye, man.
Bye.